Hi guys, Pigmoon here with another video. Today we will move away from the Indian Armed Forces videos to something more of a local flavor. ASEAN Air Forces. So what's ASEAN? The Association of Southeast Asian Nations is a regional organization of 10 countries within the Southeast Asia region. And they consist of 1. Brunei, 2. Cambodia, 3. Indonesia, 4. Laos, 5. Malaysia, 6. Myanmar, 7. Philippines, 8. Singapore, 9. Thailand, 10. Vietnam. This regional organization promotes intergovernment cooperation and practices a non-intervention policy of each other's internal affairs. So this has caused ASEAN to be more of a diplomatic and trade grouping, with each country diverging their internal policies away from each other or together, and the silent rule of this non-intervention is enforced. Let's take a closer look at the air forces of each of these 10 countries and use simple rules of their operational capability and rank them in ascending order. The operational capability will be drawn on their combat aircraft available, as well as the HDI or the Human Development Index, which is a rough gauge of how their individual air force manpower capability is developed. So a mixture of the two or amalgamate it into a ranking. And before anyone tries to frame this as biased or nationalistic, I stand for the record that the findings are objective from open sources, Wikipedia to find the HDI, combat aircraft inventory, and not only just from my personal opinion. I will evaluate accordingly to what I know according to each nation and how they build, sustain, maintain, and deploy their air power. After averaging out the effects of HDI and the aircraft inventory for combat aircraft, the list or the ranking is as follows. Number 10, Lao People's Liberation Air Force. They have a 0 frontline capable combat aircraft, less the 3 transports and 14 helicopters. Laos has not been a strong military power, and its landlocked geographic location does not benefit it to have poor relationships with its neighbours. It was involved in the Vietnam War, but only as a side role, and with a HDI of 0.75 or 575, it is 10th on our list today. 9th, Royal Cambodian Air Force. The Royal Cambodian Air Force is 9th on the list, but they're still without any fighter aircraft and limited to 5 transports and 20 helicopters. HDI of 0.555 is low, and thus the development of officers and manpower are limited. Cambodia was involved extensively in the Vietnam War and the invasion by Vietnam in 1978, and only got their first democratic elections in 1993. Lack of fighter aircraft makes Cambodia unable to enforce her EEZ from the air, but predominantly using naval assets only or vessels only. Number 8, the Royal Brunei Air Force. RBAF is next, and it similarly does not have any frontline fighter aircraft at the time of publishing. They only have 1 transport aircraft and 18 helicopters. But the HDI of Brunei is very high at 0.856. The big difference between the RBAF and the previous 2 countries is that the higher level of training and development for the manpower increases the operational capability in air power and its deployment. Number 7, Philippine Air Force. The PAF operated jet aircraft until 2005. And recently, in 2015, the FA-50 Fighting Eagle from Korea arrived. There are currently 4 of these light fighters, but apparently they were bought without weaponry, and it is still counterproductive in this sense. They are unable to enforce their claims in the South China Sea, but lots of political changes recently. Oh, a weaponless fighter aircraft is a toothless tiger, but having fighters is better than having no fighters. PAF has still 3 of the S211 aircraft and 10 OB-10 Broncos for coin missions. HDI of Philippines is 0.668, and thus they are in the 7th position. 6th, TNI-AU. In Indonesian Air Force, or the TNI-AU as it's commonly called, is 6th on the list. Indonesians have been trying to upgrade their air force, but the limited funding for acquisitions ended up with half-baked buys or buys without weaponry. The US has been assisting with the introduction of a newer F-16 Block 30s or 40s through the FMS program. A total of 23 fighter aircraft is in their current inventory, pending further deliveries, but it's definitely too low to defend an archipelago that is this vast. The inability to acquire further combat and new combat aircraft or weaponry, together with a medium HDI index, limits the development of TNI-AU. 5. Myanmar Air Force. The Myanmar Air Force is 5th on the list with a total of 74 fighter aircraft, and although 19 of them are dedicated ground attack aircraft, the Nanchang Q-5. Tensions at the border with Thailand and internally with the various rebel groups have made the Myanmar Air Force more capable than what others believe. But the application of their air power can be haphazard, and there were bombs that were dropped in the northern states that actually strayed into China's territory and killed innocent civilians last year. This is rather unacceptable at this day and age, and limits the NAF, the Myanmar Air Force, in this list. A low DNI or a HDI of a 0.555 drags it down the list due to slower development or human development within the country, but we are seeing improvements as it goes. Number 4, the Royal Thai Air Force, RTAF, is next on the list, using predominantly US aircraft, F-16s and 8 Gripens, and 13 F-16s were donated by Singapore, and the Gripens from Sweden. As mentioned, it has interactions with the Myanmar Air Force at the border regions, though there were no open conflicts. And with the South China Sea on the east and Andaman Sea on the west of Thailand, it's hard pressed to police both these areas simultaneously. And they don't really have a very long range transport aircraft, less than CN-30. The HDI of high HDI of 0.726, it's not surprising to see the RTAF within the top 5. Number 3, Vietnam's People's Air Force. The Vietnamese has been a traditional warlike country or people, with conflict stretching back to the Han Dynasty. I guess maybe even slightly before that. More recently, the Vietnamese War and the invasion of Cambodia. The Vietnamese Air Force have been supplied by the Russians, and they actually do fly high-end Su-30 Mk2s, and together with 11 of Su-27s. It allows them to enforce their EEZ and within the Gulf of Tonkin as well as South China Sea. Potentially, there's a setup for a possible clash with the other claimants. With order lower of a HDR of 0.666 and is lower than Thailand, it's my belief and my personal opinion that Vietnamese People's Air Force is much more proficient. They have a longer range and stronger aircraft and better weaponry, and is determined to fight more than the Thai Air Force, and thus is third in the list. Number 2, the Royal Malaysian Air Force. RMAF needs no further introduction. It's one of the strongest air force in Southeast Asia, and coupled with a complex C4I system, and as well as being the host of the FPDA in Butterworth, RMAF has the experience in a multi-ship, multi-wave task-oriented operations to apply the air power, which is what most of the countries in the region cannot do. They have 18 Su-30 NKMs stationed at the Gong Kedak Air Base in the northern part of in Kelantan, Terengganu area. It is placed strategically and allows her to enforce both the northern and the southern, as well as the east within the South China Sea areas, and lastly even in the Malacca Straits. The RMAF also have 12 MiG-29s and 8 more F-18s, and together it forms a formidable air power applicator or force in Southeast Asia. High HDI of 0.779. She is definitely worthy of second place. Number 1, RSF, top of the list, cream de la cream. Singapore has been called a red dot and too small to be influential in the region, but throughout the years she has proven everybody wrong. The numbers of the frontline fighters are staggering, and capabilities of the RSAF within her service and as a joint asset are overwhelming for any potential adversary. The deterrence is there. A total of 102 F-16s and F-15s, together with a myriad of support aircraft. The air power projection capabilities of RSAF is second to none in the region, and it extends not just to ALPS, but also ground ops HADR operations that she has been called to respond to, the 2004 Boxing Day tsunami, and with extensive and multiple overseas detachments and interactions with the US, NATO, Australia, RSAF is kept abreast in the world air power developments and applications. This, coupled with a very high HDI of 0.912 in Singapore, ensures that manpower development and pilots and airman development is very high to improve their skills and capabilities. This is overwhelming that RSAF is number 1 on our list today and strongest of all the ASEAN Air Forces. Like or subscribe or add a comment at the bottom, and we will further this discussion and whether this whole thing is actually moving or not. Thanks for watching.